For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber. Instant analysis of USC's 31-28 victory over Stanford Cardinal for the 2017 Pac-12 Championship. The Trojans are champions, and this game was kind of a microcosm of the whole season. It was all bunched up into one game.
Yeah, all the good things, all the bad things, the fact that at the end USC is standing, that they figure out some way to come out of a game where you thought, man, you can't do that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. If you do that, maybe you don't deserve to win. And yet they put themselves in a position where they make the big stand at the goal line, 2 plays inside the 1, then they drive the ball 99 yards for the touchdown that made the difference. And so they did deserve it in every way. As much as it's kind of frustrating to watch them put themselves in such difficult situations time and again. But this is who they are. After 12 games, you're pretty much that team that played the first 12. That's you in game 13. And I will give them credit. They hang in there at the end somehow.
Yeah. Time and time again, USC proved this season that under pressure in the fourth quarter, they can drive down the field and score when they have to. You'd think after the UCLA game, and David Shaw saw Jim Moore not elect to go for the field goal, David Shaw might want to go for the field goal in the fourth quarter. He doesn't. That ends up being the difference maker. Do you think David Shaw wants that one back?
I don't know. I mean, Stanford is the team that tells themselves no one can stop us twice inside the 1 yard line. Nobody can. But, this now you look at this and, I was not even surprised that they didn't take it. I didn't even think that they would not go for it. I was absolutely certain they would go for it. And I don't know how many years back you've got to go to come up with that kind of a goal line stand in that situation for USC. I mean, I can't remember one comparable that mattered that much. So, by Stanford going for it, it gave USC a chance to step up and make a play that kind of erased, or make 2 plays that kind of erased all of the stuff that went into giving Stanford all those chances at the goal line. I mean, the penalties and the mistakes and what have you. You can erase those. Josh Fatu, I guess, made the tackle on the first play. Chenna Nwosu made the tackle on the second play. So 2 seniors.
Mm-hmm. How would you evaluate how USC's defense did? They limited Bryce Love to around 120 yards. They had some few big plays, but that's what we've come to know with this Clancy Pendergast defense. How would you evaluate their performance tonight?
Well, I thought they played the run pretty darn well. They got pushed back a little bit. What they failed to be able to do is to play the ball in the air. The 2 big plays or 3 big plays, they were in position. I mean, it wasn't like a busted coverage or a blown up defense. They were there. They just didn't have the ability to get turned around on the ball, to get off the ground. They did not have that ability. And why that's so, they've got athletes, but their inability to play the ball in the air, you couldn't be in better position than they were on a couple of those plays, and there's the ball caught in between them, and you think, how did that happen? And so when you evaluate the USC defense, there's a couple of components there, and defending the long ball is not one of there, and they didn't quite get to Costella, a team that led the nation in sacks, or second in the nation in sacks, needed to get there a little bit more, and they didn't. And when they don't, that's what happens.
It was kind of ironic. The 2 wide receivers that Stanford did not see much of in week 2 was Tyler Vaughns, who I only got 15 snaps, I believe, against Stanford. And then, of course, Michael Pittman was out with an ankle injury. Those 2 just went off tonight. Michael Pittman had a career-high receiving yards. He also set the Pac-12 Championship record for receiving yards. So just 2 explosive performances from them tonight.
Yeah, I was talking to T, and I said it really makes the point about what the absence of Michael Pittman from the second week on there, what kind of a difference that made for the USC offense. And T said, I know it sounded like maybe we were making excuses, but we weren't. He said he's the guy. He said, like tonight, he said, I look at him and I say he's big and strong, and it's like getting Juju back. And he said you have to go to him And then Tyler Vaughn's the kind of guy you get him isolated, and he's so athletic, and he can get to the goal line. And yeah, you're right. Those two didn't play. They need to be on the field, and they've proved it. And I think Sam has really developed a chemistry and a confidence in those guys. And you've got to be confident when you're throwing out of your own end zone and you're throwing it to somebody at the 50-yard line. You really have to trust that guy, and Sam did.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned how T said no excuses. It was almost like the USC winning the Pac-12 championship gave them a little bit of validation and leeway to admit that this was a tough schedule that they had to play. Sam Darnold said after the game that he admitted, going to Wazoo on a Friday, going to a tough Notre Dame team at home was hard for them to do. And so you could kind of see the players start to admit a little bit the struggles that they had to face this season.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody basically, now that USC might be in the running, if everything goes their way tomorrow, and you have it coming down to a number of, say, 2-loss teams. And from Larry Scott before the game at his press conference to everybody else, the talk is, yeah, USC played the toughest schedule. They played 12 straight games. They lost 2 games when they had 7 guys out one game, 5 guys out another. They played Notre Dame after Notre Dame had scheduled a bye week the week before, and USC was playing 12 straight weeks. They were made to go to, even Larry Scott said, they were made to go to Pullman on Friday night after a travel week the week before. And so everybody is kind of on the same page about, okay, this is a team that they've survived. And if you're going to get it down to 2-loss teams, the point is they're a conference champion. They had maybe the toughest kind of schedule to handle all year long. I mean, they lost to a top 15 team, Washington State, on that Friday short week on the road, and they lost to Notre Dame, a top 10 whatever team, after Notre Dame had a bye when USC had 7 players out. I think 4 of those guys played tonight. So I think, you can make the point that they really did have a difficult way to go.
We're almost getting run over each pass of that little lawnmower. Happens every time after the end of every game.
Did they bring up the guy from the Coliseum? Or is that his brother?
Like I said, it happens every time we film this.
Wherever we go, they're coming at us.
It's true. But as far as the postseason goes, after this game, where do you think USC goes? What's your prediction?
I would think the Fiesta Bowl to play the loser, I don't know, maybe the winner of the Ohio State-Wisconsin game. I think they're going to get a classic Big Ten, Pac-12 Rose Bowl type matchup in a Fiesta Bowl game, which would be good for USC's fans. I guess, a number of, the whole, everything that could possibly happen and go your way. I mean, it's not impossible that they would survive and be the 4th team in the playoffs, but man, so much has to happen in so many different ways. They probably needed to win this game. As much respect as Stanford has for their 2 top 10 wins in the last 3 games, they might have needed to beat them a little bit more tonight than they did. As good as any win over Stanford is right now, they probably needed, and they had a chance to make this not as close. When you look at the stats and all that, this game wasn't all that close, stat-wise. Yeah. If the score wouldn't be this, that might have given them a little bit more of an edge. But you would think it's the Fiesta Bowl against whoever comes out of the Big Ten.
It's worth mentioning that Chris Hawkins had a team-leading 13 tackles tonight. He actually revealed to us in the locker room post-game that his grandma passed away last night from breast cancer, and he said that this is the first game that his grandma did not watch him. He said she's watching him from above, and it was just, he had tears in his eyes. It was just a remarkable moment to see one of the captains of this team put on a performance like he did and still lead the team when he's dealing with a lot emotionally.
Well, he's a 5th-year senior, and the 13 tackles are the most that he's ever had in a game in 5 years. I mean, this is his high. So and he makes the play on running down Bryce Love, saving a touchdown on that play. He had some great moments in this game. I mean, you can't, and he's kind of the senior go-to guy, the motivator, the historian. He's kind of the guy that holds it all together, for the seniors, and he's the one that was here 2 years ago and wanted to make up for what happened 2 years ago, and I think it really mattered to him that they won this game tonight, and he just said, that left us kind of an empty feeling a couple of years ago, and now they don't have that feeling.
True. We said coming into this game that the Pac-12 Championship has the ability to sway how fans feel about the season overall, because games weren't very convincing wins, and fans were kind of disgruntled which way should they go feel about the season. They won the game. Helton said after the game, fans won't remember the scores of this season. They'll remember that this team was Pac-12 champions.
Well, and they'll remember they beat a really good Stanford team, which is interesting because it almost doesn't seem to matter who they're playing. I mean, it's kind of the same game. It was the same game against UCLA, a UCLA team that just got absolutely just totally whacked by Stanford against, one after another. This is kind of who this USC team is, but when you can do it against a team that's just knocked off top 10 Washington, just knocked off top 10 Notre Dame, that's a good way to finish. So they are who they are.
They are. Okay, any final thoughts from Levi Stadium for the Pac-12 Championship game?
How happy you are for these kids to have had the chance in this game to kind of reverse some of the things that went wrong in this game, and to be able to say, we overcame that. Some of those were self-inflicted wounds, and yet we were there at the end. We were tough enough. We made those kinds of plays, and you really feel good about that. You feel good about them being able to feel good about themselves. If it were me, I'd probably ask them to do a little less celebrating during the game. I mean, I just, wait till it's over, and you would like them, and it's hard because you want them, it's USC, you want them to kind of say, or to kind of look like, okay, we've been there before, we've done this. Yeah. But you realize this team hasn't, and USC hasn't for a long time had a championship. So maybe, this is how it goes when you finally get over that hump and you get back there and you get that championship. Because for a while there, USC was going to the Rose Bowl every year, and it was like, oh man, do we have to go to the Rose Bowl again this year, and whatever. So that's a completely different way of looking at things than this team. Yeah. And we forget that, I think, a little bit. But boy, they were happy. I mean, they are really happy. And if you know these kids, you got to be happy for them, even though you might want to say, gee, I wish you wouldn't do that. They are, that's who they are, that's what they do.
It's true. But as far as the younger players, they have a win like this under their belt. What does that mean for the future? Should USC fans be excited heading forward?
Yeah, I mean, just think Josh Fowler, you're the the kid. Nobody's looked at you during the game except for the one really dumb penalty that you got on a fair catch, unsportsmanlike conduct on a punt. And
that was actually Levi Jones, I believe.
Huh?
I thought it was Levi Jones.
Oh, was it Levi? Okay, they gave the number 83, but you think it was Levi?
I believe it was Levi.
Okay.
Not sure.
It wouldn't be the first time that they didn't give exactly the correct information on the referee's mic. But well, that's even better than for Josh, because then he's got a really good, experience here. Yeah, for a kid like that, imagine what that means to know that they were confident in you. They could throw you the ball that basically won the game for them. Once they made that play, the game is over. And on a fourth down, I mean, that's a really big deal. So that's a perfect example of somebody who got a chance to step up. But then there's an upperclassman like Jordan Austin who has to go in there when Andrew Voice gets the concussion, and I'm guessing Jordan has never gotten that many plays. Yeah. And for him to go out there and just, he's our guy, and to hang in there and finish out the game and be part of all of that, what a great thing that is, that is for him. So, and then you look at the seniors, how great it is for them to be able to go out of here.
Yeah.
And we did it. Chris mentioned in his recruiting class 5 years ago, they recruited just 13 players.
Wow.
So that's a very small base to start from, the building back, because they still had the sanctions, and they made it.
They made it. All right, that's going to wrap it up from Levi Stadium, probably before we get run over, maybe.
I don't know which one. You got to be careful, because when you're looking that way, this guy's probably going to run us over.
We're surrounded, so we probably should go. That's going to wrap it up for the Pac-12 Championship game. USC is the 2017 Pac-12 champion. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.